MassComm ni ada sikit function dia dalam industri.
Pertama, MassComm dia ada benefit. Benefit dia ada. Semua benda ada benefit. Arab pun ada benefit. Tapi hanya kerana benda tu ada benefit, bukan makna benda tu kita kena buat. Ini kita nak betulkan pemikiran ataupun cara berfikir. Kedua, bocah-bocah MassComm, mostly dia ambil MassComm sebab dia nak elak daripada sains, teknologi, matematik. Dia ambil MassComm mudah. MassComm ni mudah guys. MassComm ni mudah gila. Yang susah engineering. MassComm ni untuk budak-budak yang maybe kurang pandai, tapi still nak buat degree, dia buat MassComm. Sebab MassComm mudah nak lulus. Dia orang boleh cakap, oh MassComm. Tapi kita orang belajar broadcasting, kita orang kena interview banyak orang.
Tapi dulu background dia ni study as?
MassComm lah.
Oh, MassComm.
Maknanya English campur MassComm. Tapi still ada bahasa. Bukanlah MassComm 100%.
Awak pun sudah MassComm sebenarnya.
Minor.
Oh, awak pun dia juga. Awak minor MassComm.
Minor MassComm. Still kita belajar broadcasting, kita belajar journalism. Lepas buat video, dia boleh terfikir, aku pun MassComm tak?
So betul lah macam awak mengata, macam teringat awak tengah mengata di sini.
Look, right? That little smirk someone gives you when you mention majoring in mass communication. Like it's the, I don't know, the easy route.
Yeah, the academic equivalent of the kids' table at Thanksgiving dinner, maybe.
Exactly. Like it's just a bit of fun compared to the quote-unquote real degrees.
Right.
Well, get ready, because we're about to do a deep dive today that might just completely flip that script for you.
Yeah, our mission here is really to dismantle that myth. And not just based on feelings, but with, actual rigor and solid evidence. We want to show mass communication, MassComm, for what it is. Dynamic, intellectually demanding, and honestly, crucially important, especially when you look at contexts like Malaysia.
Yeah, and we've dug into some really interesting sources for this. Recent research, cultural analyses, academic papers, stuff that really pushes back against the stereotype.
Right, they peel back the layers.
They do.
Yeah.
And hopefully, this deep dive gives you a kind of shortcut to understanding why that whole easy perception is, well, maybe spectacularly wrong.
Yeah.
Almost comically so sometimes.
Okay.
So, let's start there. Where does this idea that MassComm is easy even come from? I mean, okay, not quantum physics. We get that.
Sure.
The things it produces ads, news articles, films, they feel pretty accessible to us, right?
Yeah.
As consumers.
We see them every day.
And I think that accessibility, it kind of leads to this false assumption that making them must also be easy.
Yeah.
Agrees.
It's like that misunderstood artist idea, isn't it? The brilliance seems effortless, so people dismiss the actual work involved.
That's a good way to put it. And culturally, especially in Malaysia, this plays out in some really specific ways, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You hear it maybe over Teteric, right? That it's the degree for those who talked up in engineering, couldn't get into engineering.
Right. Or they just want to talk to people up.
Exactly. It's dismissed as course Senang, an easy course. There was even an ethnographic study looking at campus life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it observed how MassComm students were often seen as, cool or fun, but maybe not brilliant compared to medicine or engineering students. And look, this isn't just chat, this kind of perception. It can actually affect things like how departments get funding or even career prospects down the line.
Wow. Okay, so my old mental picture of a MassComm student's day might have been a bit off then. It's clearly not just talking and writing.
Not at all.
So what does a typical day actually look like? Is it really that demanding?
That's a great question because it gets right to the intellectual core. Look, MassComm isn't lightweight. It's much more like an academic decathlon.
A decathlon, how so?
Well, students have to master this, frankly, dizzying array of skills all at once. You need precise writing for totally different platforms. You need compelling visual design.
Okay.
You need to analyze complex data to figure out audiences. And maybe most importantly now, you need to be able to spot and counter misinformation.
That last one sounds huge today.
It is. Some recent research really highlights the cognitive effort involved just in effectively detecting fake news. It's a skill honed through tough coursework. These aren't simple multiple choice questions,
Right.
They're like intellectual marathons. You're figuring out how to craft a message that actually cuts through all the noise online while juggling persuasion and ethics.
And it's not just the individual skills, it's how they combine, right? That interdisciplinary nature seems key.
Exactly. You're blending sociology, psychology, technology, sometimes in really surprising ways.
Yeah, I saw a study about digital literacy. I think it was among Indonesian students. It showed MassComm courses are increasingly packing in technical skills, critical analysis, and creative production.
And you see that in Malaysia, too. University programs accredited by the MQA, the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, they have demanding modules. Things like media law, communication theory, strategic campaign planning, digital media production.
That doesn't sound easy at all.
It's rigorous stuff. And think about getting into these programs. It's not a free-for-all.
Right. The entry requirements.
You need to complete a pre-university program, meet specific English requirements, often a credit in English at the SPM level or equivalent in Malaysia. That alone filters out a lot of applicants.
So much for the idea that anyone can just wander in.
Exactly. And you hear that fallacy, no physics, no pain, dismissing degrees without hard maths.
Mm-hmm.
But the intellectual challenge, the, dare I say, pain in MassComm, comes from grappling with messy human variables, public opinion, social dynamics, cultural shifts. These are way less predictable than a particle in a physics experiment.
That's a really good point. You're modeling human behavior with all its quirks.
Right. Emotions, culture, bias. It's
Mhm.
constantly shifting. It demands a different kind of thinking, constant adaptation. That can be a heavier cognitive load than following a fixed algorithm.
Okay, so it's clearly demanding intellectually, but it's not just about brains, is it? There's this whole other dimension, emotional resilience, ethics.
Absolutely crucial. Students aren't just making content in a vacuum. They're shaping perceptions, often under pretty intense spotlight.
Yeah. Imagine like crafting a public health message during a pandemic.
Or a social justice campaign when society's divided. Mistakes aren't just embarrassing. They can erode trust, damage careers, have real-world impact.
The pressure must be immense to be creative and incredibly responsible.
Which leads to a good question for you listening. What stands out to you when you think about that pressure? Because the stereotype just ignores the emotional toll.
Right.
These students face constant feedback from professors, sure, but also peers and potentially the public online. It's relentless.
Like living in a feedback loop.
Pretty much. There was an interesting analysis connecting this to media portrayals, like in the show Girls, how creators have to navigate what the audience wants while trying to stay authentic. It's a balancing act.
And in Malaysia, that balancing act gets even more complex, right?
Oh, definitely. You have stringent legal frameworks. You have deeply ingrained cultural and religious sensitivities you must respect.
So creativity has real guardrails.
Serious ones. One scholar described communication campaigns in Malaysia as a masterclass in diplomacy. You're juggling messages for people who speak Bahasa Melayu, Mandarin, Tamil, various dialects.
All while staying within legal and social lines.
Exactly. It's a high-wire act, and there's often no safety net if you get it wrong. Far trickier than, say, calculating torque.
It really puts it in perspective. And it makes sense then why graduates aren't just, getting by.
Mm-hmm.
If MassComm were truly easy, they wouldn't be dominating fields like journalism, advertising, digital marketing.
But they are.
They are. They thrive in jobs that demand adaptability, innovation. Think YouTube creators, corporate PR strategists.
Look at any recent election cycle, like the 2024 U.S. one. Media framing that's a core MassComm skill clearly shaped how people saw the candidates.
Right. So call it easy.
Mm.
Maybe tell that to the strategists influencing elections or the journalists uncovering corruption.
And let's zoom in on the economic and societal impact, especially in Malaysia. It's huge.
How so?
Well, the creative and media industries, they contribute over RM 40 billion to the GDP. Wow, okay.
And jobs like content strategist, social media manager, media liaison. These aren't just nice to haves anymore. They're essential in the digital economy.
You see those job titles everywhere now.
And it's not just in media. A JobStreet Malaysia report ranked communication skills in the top 5 soft skills employers want across all industries.
Across the board. That says a lot.
It does. And think about the power of MassComm tools in society. Social media campaigns, even political memes. They've amplified major political shifts in Malaysia. Think Reformasi back in '98 or the hashtag Undai18 movement more recently.
So it's deeply tied into social change.
Absolutely. It's like trying to build a bridge while the river underneath keeps changing course. Strategic thinking, the constant adaptation required, it's immense.
So I think we can safely say the next time someone kind of scoffs at mass communication, calls it easy, you'll know better. It's vibrant, it's vital, and it is undeniably demanding. It takes intellectual rigor, creative spark, and a really strong ethical compass, especially in a world where media, well, it shapes our reality. Yeah. Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to mull over. If understanding and navigating Malaysia's incredibly complex cultural, linguistic, social landscape through strategic communication, if that's easy, then maybe we should let our politicians, our business leaders, our diplomats know they've been overcomplicating things all this time.